All right, although it's not the greatest of tie-ins, I'm going to mention something for a couple minutes here, as you can see on the screen. Believe it or not, it will relate to what we're about to talk about. All right, starting next week, what's going to happen is at some time, I don't know when, I don't know, but Jim Boyd and Shannon, they're two, Shannon is basically now kind of like the director of all the campuses, and Jim works with her. They're going to be coming in here and checking to make sure everyone is in compliance with the way that the Rankin standards. So for instance, you see, for example, Christian has on a hoodie. It's a Rankin hoodie, which is just fine. But if it wasn't a Rankin hoodie, she would go tell him, if you want to wear a hoodie, it's got to be a Rankin hoodie. All right? Grace, it looks like your jacket is just a regular ski jacket. I don't mind that. All right? They will come in here and tell you right away you're out of compliance. All right? And they even say in here the things that they get most often: non-Rankin garments worn, cargo style or denim style pants, leggings, lacking belts, hair length. You may disagree. So you might come in here and they might say to Chris, your hair's wrong. And you're like, yeah, you just got it cut. It's just fine. All right, but they're saying you're not in compliance. Now, what we are supposed to do here, just so you know, I've never done this, but it's like if you're out of compliance and you're told by, let's say, by Shannon, and then you're told by Charles, and then Charles tells me to tell you, and you just still won't comply, I'm supposed to take off on your work ethic grade. That's the way it works. Because what you've proven is you can't take directions. It's never gotten to that point with me. That's what I'm saying. It's never been that kind of problem. All right? But like I said, I just want you to know. They even included here, I'm not going to go over this, but they even included here 3 pages from the student handbook. All right? So if you go, well, where do I find out this stuff? You can go out the inside Rankin. You can get to the student handbook right from there. All right? And it's funny. Let's tell you a very quick story. I told the first year people. And Chris, you'll especially like this because it involves Devin. All right? Devin last year, if you remember, last semester, I don't remember the day, but it was maybe halfway or so into the semester. Shannon walked in here, said hello, walked up and down every row. And my first thought was, what the hell did I do wrong? Okay? Seriously, that's what I kept thinking. So about an hour later, I saw her, and I said, Shannon, what the hell did I do wrong? She just laughed. She said, you didn't do anything. She said, but you had 2 people out of compliance. And I don't remember which one of you it was, but somebody, their hair was too long over their ears, and then Devin was wearing pants that had like studs in them. You know what I'm talking about? Like, the little things in there. So I said, okay, what do you want me to do? She said, I want you to tell him he's out of compliance. So I said, okay. So I told him. He immediately started laughing like crazy because he said, I'm graduating in December. This is the only pair of pants I've worn for 3 semesters. He said, I wear the same pair every day, basically. And he said, nobody's ever said anything. And he said, well, what's going to happen? You've told me, so what's the next step? I said, well, if she sees you again, she'll call you into her office and ask you if I told you. And he said, well, then what's going to happen? I said, I don't know what the next step would be. And he goes, okay, I'll wait for that then. And she never called him in or anything else. But I'm just telling you that there is an actual protocol here. In a way, you could kind of look at it that since you're agreeing to come here, it's kind of like you don't physically sign it, but this is sort of like a contract. Would you agree with that? All right? It's kind of, like I said, the reason I'm telling you that is going back to that line of code right there. What it says is any class that is going to extend from our payroll class must have a method in it called earnings, and it must return a double. Did you hear that? Everybody, all 4 of these people will earn in different ways, but they will all earn. I could have called this gross or whatever. I just called it earnings. All right? And I will tell you, too, sometimes I do find stuff online, either I'll pilfer it or I'll use it as a starting. This is 100% mine. So if you think, man, this thing we've been doing sucks, then it's all on me. All right? So we are done with the payroll part. That's it. Okay? But just so you know, we cannot compile and run the payroll class. We cannot, because the class is abstract. Does that make sense? All right. Because again, if you go in for a Java interview, they're going to expect you know this stuff. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to right mouse click and do new and do Java class. I've already got one called hourly. So if you look up on the screen, please, you've got your choice. You can call yours hourly with an H, but I'm going to call mine hourly06 because I already have an hourly. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? You do it either way. It doesn't really matter. All right? But since I've already got an hourly in mind, I'm calling mine hourly06. Now it is a class. Do not make this an interface. All right? All right. If you did it correctly, it'll look like this. Public class hourly or public class hourly 06. One way or the other. First thing we have to do is two things. Look on the screen, please. We have to let the system know this class extends payroll 06 and it implements Payroll 06. Now it's giving me a bunch of errors and I'm not sure why, so I'm going to see if quickly I can figure out what the problem is. Oh, I know what the problem is. Okay, see how I'm getting an error? You probably will too. Anybody want to take a wild guess as to why we're getting that error? Yes. No. It's because we have to write that method. Remember, because we are extending that abstract class, that abstract method must be in. If I just do this, just so you see it, I'm going to remove this. But if I just come in here and say public double earnings, I'm going to remove this in just a minute. And I just say return 0.0. You got to spell return correctly. Then notice every error is gone. Don't put that in because that's not how we're doing it. But when I take that out, I get an error. Don't let that bother you. All right. Again, it's one of those times where, boom, I can come up here and it says, hey, you must be declared abstract or it must implement that method. Do you want to implement the method? If you see that, I click, boom. It'll write it, if I choose it, it'll write it for me. It's just going to be a stub, basically, but I can do that if I want to. So we're now doing the first leg here. We're doing an hourly employee. That basically is what we did in the past. All right. Why? Because we did hours worked, hourly rate, and that's how we figured out the gross. And if we had to, we put in the overtime. All right. So we're going to do that now. It won't take real long. This, believe it or not, though, I believe that out of all the ones that we're going to create, this may be the longest one. All right. So we'll do it. We'll see where we are time-wise, etc. All right. So I've got public class hourly. It extends, so it is a child of payroll 06. So it's going to have access directly or indirectly to everything payroll 6 is. All right. So imagine, when we looked at that animal before, and I said dog, cat, and fish. All right. Every dog is an animal, but not every animal is a dog. The reason I'm telling you that is not to be funny, but when you talk about inheritance is an is-a or an is-an type of relationship. So in this case, hourly is a type of payroll or employee or whatever we call it. All right? And it's going to implement our Payroll06. Why do we need that? Because I need my default hours, my min hours, my max hours, my default rate, my min rate, and my max rate. And I'm hoping all that makes sense. All right? We're going to have only two fields in here. Private, double, hours worked. You probably guessed the other one. Private, double, hourly rate. All right? And we're not even going to implement in here. We're not even going to implement a NoArgh constructor. I mean, we can. We might as well. All right? Let's just be complete here. So we will put in first our NoArgh constructor. Okay? So that says public hourly, boom, just like that. All right? It's hourly 06 in my case, so I'm getting the error. All right, error's gone. Okay? Now, there's different ways that I can do this, just so you know. All right? But I want to come in here and I want to be able to set what? Just these two fields. Just these two. If I set just these two fields, what fields am I not setting? Didn't we have 3 fields in our last class? Didn't we have first name, last name, and social security number? All right. So if all I do in here is, for example, the kind of tests we made before, don't type in this yet, please. But if I come in and say this dot hours worked, equals, and I can make my check to see if it's less than the minimum or greater than the maximum, set it to the default, otherwise set it. Like I said, don't type that. We're not going to do it that way. But how are we going to handle? How are we going to handle the other 3 fields? What we want to do is we want to call the constructor of the parent. Did you all hear me? We want to call the constructor of the parent. You can't call it directly unless you do something like this. Okay? What that will do is it will say, okay, who's the parent of this thing? Oh, Payroll06. So it will come in, all right, and it will basically do the one from Payroll06. Now, we may end up getting an error from this, just so you know. When I implemented this myself, I did not make any NoArgh constructors. So when we test this, we may end up getting an error. I don't know. If we do, we'll fix it. So don't worry about that. But now with the rest of this, okay, I want to handle it. Well, how did we handle it before? What did we do in our NoArgh constructor? Look at what we have in our NoArgh constructor. It should come in and set first name, and it should set last name, and it should set social security number. It should do that for us with that call to super. It should do that. All right? So what's left? This dot hours worked equals def hours. This dot hourly rate equals def rate. That should be everything. Okay? What that's hopefully going to do then is if we create a brand new hourly payroll object and we pass in nothing, it should jump up to here and set a default first name, a default last name, and a default social security number, then come back here and set a default hours and a default rate. And I'm not going to say to you, does that totally make sense? Because it might, and it might not. Yes? 40. Do you also notice, it's good that you asked that, Tom, because look, do you also notice now that def hours and def rate, they're not are gray anymore? They're purple. That means they're now being used. The other ones are right now not being used. When we get done, we'll be using max non-OT, OT rate, hours, and min and max hours in this routine, in this class, I should say. All right. So we not only have, remember, our NoArgh constructor, but we have our full argh constructor. Now, before I go on, is everybody caught up? I'm not trying to do this fast, but I know some of you are a little typing deficient, for lack of better words. All right. Can I do this and go up here? Is that all right with everybody? All right. Now what I want to do is I want to come in and I'm going to say public. Where the heck it's typing that, but try it again. Public, hourly. And now I'm going to be passing, I'm going to have what? String FN for the first name, string LN for the last name, string SSN for the social security number, double HW for hours worked, and double HR for the hourly rate. And it's giving me an error because I need curly braces. All right, and mine is going to be hourly 06. Okay, all right. Anybody want to take a wild guess how we're going to get the first name, the last name, and the social security number? Anybody want to guess what method we're going to call? What? Nope. We are going to call super. Right here. So we're going to come in and we're going to call super, and we're going to pass it the first name, the last name, and the social security number. And then we're going to call set hours worked. We're going to get an error here because we didn't write this yet, and pass in our hours worked and call set hourly rate, and we're going to pass in the hourly rate. Don't worry that those are red. All right, don't worry. We'll fix that in a minute. You already know how to fix it. We're going to add setters and getters. I'm going to give Christian a couple minutes. Usually when Pat comes in to talk to people, it only takes a minute or two. So I don't want him to fall behind. What we are telling the system, though, if you look up on the screen, we're saying, hey, we want the parent to handle the first name, the last name, and the social security number. We will handle the hours worked and the hourly rate. Does that make sense? And we're going to make a call like this to super and pass the first name, last name, and social security number for all four of these. We only had to write it once, and we're calling it from four different classes. Chris had asked a question before, it wasn't a related question about, you know, why don't you just put those constants here or there? Well, again, the idea is we're saving some code. If we knew that every employee, if you look up on the screen here, if we did know that every employee, right now we're saying they only have these three things in common. But you know what? Every employee has more than three things in common. For instance, they might all have address, city, state, zip, etc. We can take all of the things we know are in common between everything and throw them in that abstract class, because then we only have them in one place. All right? And we know that the parent class, in this case, is going to be handling all that stuff for us. We only have to write that code to handle it in one place. It would be silly if we had 50 classes and we wrote the same code 50 times, once in each class. That would be just such a waste of code. It would be code bloat. And if you had different developers doing it, who's to say it's going to be done exactly the same way? It's so easy to screw things up. All right? Sometimes you find that the more people you have working on a project, all right, sometimes rather than it getting better, it gets worse. And I've gone through this. If you don't know this, I've been on projects before in my life that we're behind. So the bosses think, oh, we'll just add more people. And guess what they do? They add more people, and they take the most important people and have them train the new people. So now you fall even farther behind. All right? While we're waiting, because we can do this right now. All right? If you look up on the screen here, please. Go down. Where are we? Go back to, I do have it. Oh, there we have it. Our hourly here. Now we can go back in and right down near the bottom, you know how to do this. Code, generate, getter and setter, and choose both of these and click OK. Now notice my errors for set hours worked and set hourly rate have gone away. Christian, we're going to let you catch back up, okay? So we put in this full art constructor. I don't know if you have that or not. If once you put it in, these two are both going to be red. Don't worry about it. You'll fix that in the next step. If there's a bad thing about what I'm doing with you, teaching you this Java, is that for not all, but for the majority of the stuff that we do in Android, I could see one of you raising your hand and saying, we're using almost none of the stuff you taught us. All right, but you know something? You know what the name of this course is? Application Programming with Java. What word is not in there? Android. So even if you look at the course description, it talks about Android, but it also says that you're going to learn Java. All right? And at least, I'm not saying that you're going to get enough in a week or so. You could go out there and set the world on fire as a Java programmer, but at least you'd have at least a fundamental understanding of what Java is. But much of the stuff that we do in Android, we're going to use very little of this stuff. So, just be honest with you. That's not that we're not going to use any of it. We will use some of it. All right, Christian, after you get this typed in, like we have done before, go to Code, go to Generate, go to Getter and Setter, and choose both of them. Okay? Okay? All right. Okay. So, as you'd probably guess, we're going to want to change our set hours worked and our set hourly rate. We're going to do that right now. And I'm going to do it the same way that I've done it before. I'm going to change this to HW for hours worked, and I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to put this on the next line. I'm going to say here, if hours worked is greater than or equal to the minimum hours, and the hours worked is less than or equal to the maximum hours, question mark HW colon def hours. There is that routine. Type it in, and we'll go over it in just a minute. All right, I'm just going to pick on somebody, and since he's right in front, I'm going to pick on Luke. What is this routine doing?
It's saying if the hours worked is greater than the minimum, greater or equal to the minimum, or less than or equal to the maximum, then point to go ahead and set it, otherwise, set it as the value entered, otherwise set it as the equal
Yeah, basically that's right. So it's saying if the hours worked we put in is between 0 and 84, it's valid. If it's not, so if it's less than 0, or if it's greater than 84, we're going to set it to the default, which is 40. Okay? And we're going to do basically the same exact thing for the hourly rate, aren't we? So I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to copy the code that's here, and I'm going to put it into my set hourly rate. Remember to change this, or I'm going to at least, to HR, and you'll see it when I get it done in a minute. Come on, stop that. And as Luke just mentioned, this is doing the same thing, but rather than doing it with the hours worked, it's doing it with the hourly rate. Right? This is the kind of thing that if you plan on going and looking for any job that's going to involve object-oriented programming, you have to be able to understand this. I don't care if it's C#. I don't care if it's JavaScript. I know we did virtually nothing with JavaScript in object-oriented, all right? But much of the work that's done in JavaScript is object-oriented. Much of the stuff that we'll do come next fall when that class changes to Node.js, I still think it is, will be object-oriented. Now, the good news for you is if you kept your JavaScript book, there is a good chapter in there on object-oriented JavaScript. It's actually well written. If you look up on the screen, is there anyone who has a question on what this routine is doing or the other one that we did? Any questions? Because this is the time for you to ask. All right. Then we have to do two more things. Two things. Now, I'm going to type in the first one, but I think there's a shortcut for the first one. So I'm going to show it to you both with the shortcut and without the shortcut. Are you with me? All right. And we'll try it later, and we'll try it both ways. And if it works with the shortcut, then it's just less typing we'll have to do. So the first thing I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to overwrite again the toString method. Okay. You already should know this, but if you look up on the screen here, the error that I'm getting right here, the reason I'm getting that underline is it's expecting a string to be returned. Right now there's no return statement. If there's no return, it treats it like the return type is void. And it's not. That's why we're getting that error. All right? So we're going to fix that right now. Okay? I'm just going to type the whole thing. There's 3 more lines. I'm going to shrink this down so you can see all of it. Okay? That is the whole routine. A little bit smaller. There. That's everything. Hopefully that's still big enough. John and John, can you guys see that back there okay? Okay. Christian, you can see it okay, and Grace? Right here, this, just so you know, this, right here, this is written without the shortcut. Did you hear me? So, when we're done, when everybody says they've got it typed in, I thought of this for some reason when I was looking at the code during lunch. I said, wait a minute, I think there's a shortcut here. I'll give it to you in a minute. Did you all notice if you look up on the screen in the upper right-hand corner, this is red? See that? That means there is an error, and it's because we still haven't put in that earnings function. Once we put that in, that'll go away, so you know. All right. I don't hear much typing. I know a couple of you might still be typing. The rest of you then, if you look up on the screen, okay, this output string should hold the words hourly payroll object. Then I should have the first name, followed by a space, followed by the last name on one line. Then on the next line, the hours worked. Then on the next line, the hourly rate. Does that all make sense? We're not worrying about gross pay right now. Okay? We'll worry about that in a bit. But does what I'm saying, does all of that make sense? Yes? No? All right. I think, now, if you look up on the screen, I think what we're doing here, first of all, when I look at it, what am I missing? I'm missing the Social Security number. I didn't even type it in. I guess I did type it in on mine. So that would be another line here. All right, it would look like this. I'll fix this in a minute. So, plus yes, and I'm going to show you. Well, this is going to sound really stupid, not like a lot of stuff doesn't, but yes and no. Yes for now. How's that? So let's see, what does it look like here? It's not get yet. There we go. right? Everybody see these 3 or 4, whatever it is? Everybody see those lines? Hopefully you'd agree with this, that if I go back to here, to my Payroll06, isn't that what I'm doing right here? See that? I think I'm already doing this, so I believe, again, would we get an error? I don't know. I think I can remove, not remove, I'm going to just comment it out just in case. I think I can comment out all of this stuff, but it gives me a chance to tell you something that's really important. All right? I want to call super. You hear me? I want to call super. But I believe, unless they've changed it in a recent version of Java, if you call super, it has to be the first executable line of code that's in the routine. Did you hear that? Because that's important. All right? So I think right here I should be able to just say super. Boom. All right. Well, now that I'm looking at it, it's giving me an error. All right. So maybe it didn't like that. But I do believe there's a way we can work on this and get that to work. All right. What is it saying here? Call to super must be first statement in constructor body. Well, it's not a constructor, and it is the first statement. All right, for now, I'll look at this, I promise. I'm going to just comment it out. We'll leave it the way it is. Okay? So you can put that there and comment it out. All right? But this should work. I have run this before, and it's worked just fine. All right? Now I'm playing with aesthetics. It's not that big a thing one way or the other. So since I commented out the super, I have to uncomment the rest of this. All right, so you should look something like that. Now the good news is we're just about done with this class. What didn't we do yet? Come on, somebody's got to know this. What haven't we written yet? Earnings. Thank you. Right? So we've got to write that. So let's go down to the bottom here and let's write earnings. Remember, it's public. Remember, it is a double. It returns a double. And remember, it's called earnings. All right? Now, we're getting this error because we're not returning anything yet. We're going to return it in just a minute. We're going to write the code. It's not much. A dozen lines or so of code. That's about all that's in here. All right, so we'll get it done in a minute. I do want to show you something. Remember when we did this? Remember, if you look up on the screen, I'm not going to actually create anything, so don't follow me. Remember when we did this and we did new, and you came down to Java class, and remember that word there, annotation? And I said I never really used that. We're going to use it right now. When you annotate something, you're giving the system some information about what it is you're about to do. So we're going to tell the system right here, hey, this is an override. We're letting the system know, is that going to be a capital O? I always forget. We're letting the system know we're overriding something that was created someplace else. It should work even if you forget the annotation, but it's considered much better programming practice to include the annotation. All right? So let me hit enter a few times here. Move this up to the top. You've seen this routine already. All right? So I'm just going to come in here and do this. If get hours worked is less than or equal to max non-OT. In other words, no overtime worked. Then we will return get hours worked times get hourly rate. All right? Bless you. But if we get to the else, we already know this. All right? some overtime worked. We don't know yet how much. It's fine. So we're going to return, and this is ugly. There's other ways you can write this, but this is just how I did it. Max non-OT times get hourly rate, paren, plus get hours worked minus max non-OT times get hourly rate times the OT rate. Now it's giving me an error because I've got a problem with my parens. I don't know if that fixed it. Maybe not. So paren. I think I need just one here. I've got two. Whoops. Paren. I believe that's right. That's it. And hopefully you're realizing when you're looking at this, okay, what we're doing when we're calculating this, we're not manually putting in the calculations. We're calling methods. Would you agree with that? We're calling get methods. It's quite possible somebody else in our department wrote that. We wrote part of the program and somebody else wrote the other part. It happens all the time. Take a look at that. I'll give you a couple minutes to key it in. If you have questions, please ask. If you haven't done a file save all in a while, wouldn't be probably a bad idea to do that here, or a Control S will do it for you also. Are you ready to start on the next one, or do you want to take 10 minutes? Somebody's got to answer for the class.
I'm ready.
All right, Luke's ready. So since he's ready, we'll do the next one, then we'll take a break. All right. What you're going to realize is not all, but much of what's in the next class will look very similar to this one, except the way that a commission person earns money is different than the way an hourly person earns money. Does that make sense? But a lot of the stuff, it's going to be the same type of stuff, but rather than using hours worked and hourly rate, we're going to be using sales and a rate that represents the commission rate. All right? So I'm not hearing anybody type, so I'm going to take for granted that everybody has this. So I'm going to right mouse click again on my source folder, choose new, choose Java class, and again, either call this one commission, or in my case, commission 06. Just be consistent. Don't call some of them commission and some commission 6, etc. Be consistent with the way you do things. And if you ever interview and they say, how come you had such horse's ass names? Just tell them because you had a horse's ass instructor. All right? They'll probably believe it anyway, so that's fine. So I've got my next class, which is my commission 06 class. All right? Just like last time, look on the screen, it's going to extend, in my case, Payroll 06, and it's going to implement, bless you, iPayroll. Did you notice the error that I get for this? This is the error. That's the error. Look on the screen. If all I put in here was implements iPayroll, I wouldn't get an error, because that's just a bunch of constants. The error is what's in blue up here. And also, did you notice on this one, the error went away on here because we wrote earnings. It still will give me some typos and other types of errors in here. All right? But we're going to do something very similar to what we did before. Okay? Now, could you copy it and make changes? If you want to, I guess you can. That's up to you. I'm just going to write it, though. So first, again, I'm going to make my NoArgh constructor. So public commission 06. If you don't already know this, all right, can somebody tell me in a sentence or two? I'm asking. If you can't, fine. But can somebody in here tell me in a sentence or two what a constructor is? It's a method, but it's a special kind of method. What is it used for? You're on the right track. When you create an object, it is the first method that gets called. So you are constructing the object. I think that's kind of what you were saying. So yeah, you're right. All right. Now, one thing I forgot, I apologize. Let's put in our two variables. So let's put in private double sales and private double rate. This will be the dollar amount of sales, and this will be the commission rate. Okay? This is going to start to look and feel a lot like what we just did. So in other words, this is our NoArgh. So let's start by calling super. And again, super should be handling just like it did in here. We called super to have it handle the first name and the last name and the social security number. What's going to change in here now is after super, we're going to say this dot sales equals default sales. Oh, that's interesting. The Payroll06 dot default sales. What? Oh, I forgot my 06 there. There we go. That was neat. Did you see that? Okay. I forgot to say 06. So I was referencing something that didn't exist. Are you all with me? So when I put sales here, I put in def sales. And notice, I didn't do it, but before the system put in for me, Payroll 06 dot. But now that I put it in there correctly with the 06, all right, it changes. All right, the other one we want is this dot rate equals def rate. Okay, so that is our NoArgh constructor, which will be followed like we had before by our full argh constructor.
Did you want the commissions rate or that C rate?
What did we call it? I don't know. I'll go back and look. If so, then you're right. So let's see. What do we call it here? God bless you. All right. Actually, probably this should have been C sales, etc. But you're right. It's C rate. Thank you. So please go back in and change that to default commission rate, def C rate. All right. So change that line right there from def rate to def C rate. All right. You could make a case right there and say, well, that shows you should have made better names. Yeah, I should have. Okay. All right. So for that full argh constructor then, we're going to come in here. All right. And we're going to have public commission 06. Remember, if I just do this, I'm going to get the error because we already have one by that name. All right, so we need string for the first name, string for the last name, string. Isn't that the way we did it before? I thought it was. String for the, oops, put the right one up here. String first, oh, that's because I put a comma there. That's probably what you said, thank you. And string for the social security number. Now we need to add double, and that'll be, I'll just call it S for sales, and double, and we'll call it R for rate. Okay? You could make a case and say, those are really, really crummy names, Jeff. I would not disagree with you. All right? So, as we did before, we're going to call super, and we're going to let the parent handle the first name, the last name, and the social security number. And then we're going to call set sales and pass in the sales, and set rate and pass in the rate. As you know, we're getting those errors because we haven't written those yet. Everybody, go write your getters and setters for these two, please. Make sure to include both the sales and the rate. There they are. And as before, we're going to change the set sales and the set rate. Once we do that, we're going to have to add our toString method and our earnings method. Then it's break time. All right? So we are now putting in the second leg under payroll, which is commission. And then after the break, we'll do the last two. At least the last one. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to change my sales here. S. You know exactly what I'm going to do here. All right. And I'm going to say here S, if it's greater than or equal to the minimum sales, and S is less than or equal to the maximum sales, well then we know it's within range. All right, so if that's the case, again, question mark S colon def sales. That's the whole thing. I thought it was at least, unless now I messed it for it. Again, this could have been done the other way, or this could have been done using if statements. All right? One thing I've always found is it's not like you're super impressing people by writing it this way as opposed to ifs, but it's less code. All right? And most programmers, I've said this before, it's not a joke. I don't know of anybody who got into programming because they like to type. All right? And then I'm going to do the same kind of thing for the rate. So you can see them both on the screen right now. All right. Sales is near the top and rate is near the bottom. And again, that means that all that's left to do is override toString and to write the earnings. And the earnings is very short here. It's going to be one line when we write it. So we should be able to take a break in about 5 minutes, hopefully. Questions? Anybody? All right. Okay. Because it's getting late, I'm going to go back to my hourly, and I'm going to grab that toString method exactly as it is. I'm going to have to make changes to it, but I'm going to grab it right now just as it is from hourly, and I'm going to copy it into commission. I'm probably going to get errors. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So what do I want to do? This is not an hourly payroll object. This will be a commissioned payroll object. I'll still get my first name. Still get my last name. Did I lose something here? I lost this. Try that again. All right. So, commission payroll object. There's my first name. There's my last name. There's my social security number. Instead of hours worked, I'll want that to say sales. And instead of get hours worked, of course, I'll want that to say get sales. And instead of hourly rate, I'll want that, I'll just put here com rate for commission rate. And instead of get hourly rate, I will get C rate. Maybe not. Did I just call it get rate? I must have. That's all of it except the last curly. All right. And for the earnings that we have to write, it's just our sales times our rate. There is, it's your sales times your commission rate. So it's going to be one line that we're going to write in just a minute. All right. Let me make this bigger and move that like that. So we literally have 4 lines to write, 5 lines. If you've gotten to that point, then it's just this. We need our at override, okay? And we need to say public double earnings, paren, and then in curlies, return get sales times get rate. That's it. So we now have completed 2 of the 4 classes. Once you get all that done, take a break. It is 2:56. Let's please come back. We'll start up again at 3:10 and hopefully finish these last 2. All right? Somebody tell me, after we finish the last 2, there's one other thing we have to write. What is it? Yeah, but it's more than that. What is main going to be inside of? It's our driver. You're right, but it is main. So we'll have to do that.